Welcome to the Sea Files, folks. Thanks for joining us again. No southern accents in this video other than the normal natural one that might come out. I grew up in the South, so every once in a while my southern accent comes out after having been gone from the South for so long. There's a serious matter that's occurring in our nation, and I think everybody needs to at least have it in the back of their mind and be aware of it, and to kind of keep an eye on things, the way things are progressing, because what's occurring will affect all of us. It will affect everyone, okay? So the conditions that were in place in the 1860s when the Civil War occurred are repeating themselves, and it's, as each day goes by, it's so stark. I mean, it's startling how similar the circumstances are between now and what it was just prior to the states seceding from the Union in the 1800s and forming the Confederate States of America. We are on the razor's edge of that happening again. Texas has basically, they sent a letter to the federal government basically stating that the federal government was basically a breach of contract with the states, okay? That the federal government is not holding up its end of the compact that it made with the states when the federal government was formed. And one of the jobs of the federal government is to protect the states from foreign invasion and to protect the states from illegal immigration, which can be considered to be a form of foreign invasion when it occurs in the manner that it's occurring now. The mass numbers of people coming across the border, and many of them military age. I saw a video today of someone who went down to the border and videoed all these, big Chevy Suburban SUVs pulling up and just letting people out, and they found a spot along the fence where they could get around some Constantine wire and come up and just waltz right on in. 2 Border Patrol units are sitting right there watching the whole thing and doing absolutely nothing. That's a breach of contract. And the contract that we have with the federal government is the Constitution. The federal government is not holding up its end of the Constitution. Yeah, he would have never gotten out of there if I didn't let him in. So they're not holding up their end. They are not doing what they are constitutionally mandated to do. Now, 30 years ago, when things were fairly calm in the country, nobody would have noticed. But today, people are noticing, because they're feeling the effects of it. And the effects are not good. They're very negative. And so the mood in the country right now is one of, you know what? Forget the federal government. We'll do our own thing. And that's what's happening in Texas. Texas has not divorced the country yet, but they are very close to it. And they basically sent a letter that the letter basically was telling the federal government, you're not doing your job. You have violated the compact that the states have made with you. And so therefore, it doesn't matter what ruling you send down to us, we're not going to abide by it. We're going to continue to enforce immigration laws at the border because you're not doing it, and it's your mandate, your job to do it, federal government. And since you're not doing it, then it falls to us to do it. And that's basically what's happening. Now, Texas, folks, and I'm serious about this, okay? This is not a silly video. Texas could very well be the flashpoint that brings a lot of turmoil to the country. Now, I'm not upset with Texas. I think what Texas has told the federal government and is doing is absolutely correct. It's the federal government that I have a problem with. It's the federal government that's not doing their job. It's the federal government that's violating the Constitution. It's the federal government that is not protecting we the people. It's the federal government that's been targeting we the people based upon religion, based upon political views and other criteria, even based upon gender, skin color. Those have been factors in people being targeted by the federal government. And people have had enough. They're done. And I know Texas is done. I know Texas is done. If other states decide to join in with Texas in solidarity, like, say, Tennessee and Florida, who in my mind are the two most likely states to join in with Texas. But don't count out Arizona, even though Katie Hobbs, a Democrat, is the governor of Arizona. She might very well join in with Texas because Arizona is feeling the negative effects of it also. Now, if you're still on the Republican versus Democrat mentality, then I guarantee you have no clue what I'm talking about. You don't understand what's happening in the country. If you think this is a Democrat versus Republican scenario, then you're absolutely clueless as to what's happening in the country. And I keep hearing it. Those Democrats. Those Republicans. That ain't it, folks. That's not the point. And that's why Trump is doing so well. Because he understands that dynamic. He understands it's not Democrat versus Republican anymore. It's the uniparty, both the Democrats and the Republicans, who are in office in Washington, D.C., versus we the people. Because both parties have failed to do their job. Both of them have breached a contract with the American people. Period. This is we the people versus the corruption, the bribery, the blackmail, the threats, and the globalists. And if you don't understand that, if that has not permeated your mind yet, penetrated your mind, then you're going to be clueless as to what's happening when things start to go down. There's already a convention of states movement that it's been happening for about 5 or 6 years now, from what I can remember. I don't remember when I first discovered it, but it's a number of years back, and it's still going, and it's growing, and it's a movement calling for a convention of the different states of the United States to basically challenge the federal government and say, look, you get your act together or you're going to face dire consequences. That movement is growing in the country, throughout the country. It's in every 50 state. It is in every state in the union. And if they do a convention of states, they've already outlined their purpose to be to basically nullify Supreme Court decisions like the one that was just brought out on the decision on the border dispute between Texas and the federal government. Decisions like that one. Any of them that were contrary to the original intent of the Constitution, original intent of the founders of the Constitution, would be null and void. They don't want to rewrite a new Constitution. They want to go back to the original Constitution. And people laugh, oh, that's funny. You're clueless. So I had somebody do a laughter thing when I said that one time. Because they're indoctrinated, little clueless minion, slave of the government. They want to go back to the original intent of the Constitution. In other words, they want to kill this concept that the Constitution is a living document and can be modified by the courts. That is not acceptable. Or as we used to say in the Navy, that's unsat. Okay? There's no negotiation there. That is not acceptable and will not be tolerated under a convention of states. Now, I don't think we're at the point where states just say, you know what, we're divorcing you, federal government, we're going to form our own government. And you're fired, and we don't want anything to do with you anymore. And your rulings and your votes and your executive orders and all of that, it's going to fall on deaf ears, and we're not going to obey. You get a league of states that are band together, and they tell the federal government, we're not listening to you anymore. We're not going to do what you want anymore. Which is where we seem to be heading. Folks, that will have a major impact on the country and a major impact on the citizens of the country. You know who doesn't want that? The drug cartels, the globalists, the people who are entering our border illegally, the sleeper cells. You know, the military-aged men with crew cuts who look like they are in somebody's military crossing into our border. They don't want it because they know what the result will be. No more playing footsie. It's, okay, this is war and we're coming for you. That's what it would be. You came in our country illegally, you're in a sleeper cell, you a drug cartel person, you, anything like that, right? You're a terrorist, we've just declared war on you and we're going to war and you better get ready to fight because we're coming for you. That's what it would mean. There was that interview on the border, independent reporter, and he was interviewing people who were coming across the border. And he asked one gentleman, he said, "Hi, what's your name and where are you from?" And a military-age, crew-cut gentleman that he was trying to interview looked at him and said, "You don't know who I am, but you will know soon." Folks, I'm a very patient person. And I really try hard to abide by the instructions in Scripture, which tells the Christian man to be a peaceful man and to not, the qualifications for a pastor, right, in 1 Timothy and Titus, right? Don't be a striker. In other words, don't be somebody who's quick to get into a fight. But I guarantee you, folks, if I was there at the time that guy said that to that reporter, I don't know that I would be able to restrain myself. I probably would have popped him right there. A nice little right hook, followed by a roundhouse kick and a side kick. And I'm serious. One thing I don't take well to is threats. I never have. Especially after I spent time in the military and law enforcement. The last thing you want to do is walk up to me and try to threaten me. Because I'm going to toss it right back at you. And I don't care who you are. I do not take well to threats. And I considered that comment by that illegal immigrant a threat. So I got a message for that young hot shot. You want to start trouble? We got 11 million well-trained veterans in this country. We have thousands of retired and former law enforcement officers in this country that are well trained. They know tactics. And they know how to hunt you down. And we've got I guarantee you, over 200 million citizens in this country who own weapons and have been trained on how to use them. So you want to walk across our border and threaten our citizens? We got a lot of land out west that's not being used, I'm sure we can find a burial plot for you. You don't walk across the border and threaten my country. We're hitting a tipping point, folks. We're hitting a flashpoint. I don't know how much longer people are going to be willing to put up with this nonsense, this crap coming out of the federal government, and the Border Patrol standing around not doing their job. It ain't going to last much longer. And convoys of trucks going down and doing protests, temporary protests, that's not going to be good enough. That's not going to be good enough. Making symbolic statements that we don't approve falls on deaf ears. If you want to get the federal government's attention, you got to hit them where it hurts. And that's why they are doing everything they can to stop Trump from being elected president. Because it's not about Democrat versus Republican. It's not about conservative versus liberal. It's about we the people versus a tyrannical federal government. And Trump understands that. He knows it. He understands it. No, I didn't agree with him on the shots. We can resolve that issue once we get the higher priority issues taken care of. The more immediate issues. But I tell you what, that's pretty high on the list though. That's a pretty immediate issue. But there's other things we got to take care of as well. And the only one that's going to do it, the only one that's not going to play the deep state game, the only one that's not bribable, only one that won't be bought off, the only one that they can't manipulate and control through threats is Trump. He's already proven it. So, they want to stop him because he scares the living daylights out of them. Because he will dismantle their little operation. I guarantee you, if he gets in this, and he will be elected, and when he gets in, there's going to be fireworks. There's going to be cannon fire in Washington, D.C. There's going to be so many firings and so many elimination of different bureaucracies. People are going to think a forest fire just started up in Washington, D.C. and it's 0% contained. And that's what they're afraid of. To me, right now, at this point, the only thing that can stop a full-blown rebellion against the federal government in this country is the election of Trump. Because as Trump is cleaning house, that will appease some of the anger that's in the country. But folks, the days of the federal government doing whatever the heck it wants and trashing the Constitution, those days are over. And there are people who've done very evil and very sinister things. They're about to face dire consequences. So I'll talk some more about this. And the other side of the coin is, if everything does go haywire, we're going to have to understand and know how to contain it so that it doesn't get out of control and we end up with a worse situation than we had before the whole thing started. So folks, keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, pay attention to what's going on. And I'm not talking about turn on the television, watch the mainstream media news and think that you've been informed. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about get smarter. Don't be gullible. Don't be naive. Get smarter. Do your research. Take the time to really closely pay attention. Because you and your family might depend upon that. Hate to leave on a dire note, a sour note, but right now, folks, we're in condition yellow, and we need to be very, very cautious and be aware of it. And I'm hoping and praying for the best. But I think we're about to go through some rough seas, if you catch my meaning. Thanks for watching. I'll have more tomorrow. Hopefully more positive tomorrow. Because I don't like being negative. I like being positive. God bless. I'll see you next time on the C Files.